Madeleine Ingram was a speaker at an event that I attended earlier this year, and I was so impressed by her positivity and all of the great advice that she was giving to other newcomers. So I reached out to her over LinkedIn, and she very kindly agreed to be part of this video project.
Hello, I'm Maddie Ingram. I am a student affairs coordinator at Campus Saint-Jean, Université de l'Alberta. I do teach courses in education at Grant MacEwan. I also teach courses at École de Langue, English as a second language. And I also teach courses in education at Université de l'Alberta, Campus Saint-Jean. I as well do all sorts of translations for a company in Calgary, and I am working with young men with special needs. Another contract that I'm having with CBC Radio Canada. I'm working with them as a consultant, a community consultant on a project called Moril. So there are a bunch of like 5 or 6 jobs at the moment.
When did you arrive in Canada?
Previously, I lived in Romania. I also lived and worked for France and in France and in Poland for a couple of months. I came to Canada in 2016. I got married with a Canadian citizen. He wanted to be in Edmonton in Canada. We are not together anymore, but that was the main reason why I came to Canada.
What challenges did you face as a new immigrant to Canada, and how did you overcome them?
The moment when I left my country, I really had everything that I wanted. I was a journalist for the national TV channel and radio station back home. It was also the biggest challenge and the most complicated actually decision of my life to basically renounce of everything that I love. It took me a long time, lots of years eventually to assess my credentials, to eventually get back to school. The way you have to tailor your resume, the way you have to answer to the employer's needs. I had way too much experience in many domains of expertise. And that was pretty hard to tailor my resume in order for me to basically apply to different positions. I volunteered to all sorts of festivals and all sorts of small events that I would find out in the community. I was a client of 3 or even 4 different organizations for newcomers in Edmonton. I would take all the possible workshops that would be out there in the community, networking all the time with people around me, trying to sell myself and to sell what I can do. All these kind of volunteering organizations had eventually contracts, now paid, and they would eventually hire me because they would know me as being a volunteer. It's really remarkable how this kind of networking is working. It is true that it's not happening overnight and it's not an easy job. It takes a lot of time for you to build up your presence online also, not only offline.
How did you adjust to the Canadian climate?
Oh boy, weather in Canada, it can be really tricky and very challenging. I personally hate winters. I'm a very solar person, which is good because in Edmonton, actually, we have lots of sun. If you take the pros and cons in terms of culture, in terms of system of education, in terms of system of health, in terms of opportunities you have, in terms of diversity and multiculturality, I think you can eventually try to compromise on something, and weather is something that I compromise to.
What do you like about living in Canada?
The fact that people are very kind and very sweet and polite with each other. Another thing that I love, being in Edmonton, it really offers me the possibility to experience so many cultures and so many cuisines and so many religions. And I love the nature. So Alberta is beautiful when it comes to mountains, when it comes to lakes, when it comes to things you can do eventually outdoor. Last but not least, I think it's a tolerance towards people, tolerance towards your background, and people are very excited to know where you're coming from, what your cultural background is, and they are very willing to share all this kind of interesting stories with you and to organize potlucks, a concept that I truly love. And in Europe, it doesn't exist. So yeah, I think it's from the cultural point of view, I think it's a huge asset.
Why do you think it's important to learn about and celebrate each other's culture?
We are not an island. We are all connected, and we are all part of this universe that is so amazingly diverse. And I think it's amazing to have this opportunity to create a meaningful connections with people from all over the world. Basically, at the end of the day, we find out that we are smiling in the same language, and we love in the same language, and we collaborate in the same language, even if we do not speak the same language. I really like the idea of raising a child in a very multicultural society, where they can experience many cultures, and they can eventually exchange different values. Also have space basically to remain true to ourselves and to our culture. And I think it's just a very rich society.
What advice do you have for recent newcomers or people thinking about coming to live in Canada?
I'm not patient at all. So I had to learn the hard way to be patient and to trust the process, because it is a process of integration. I'm saying that with a lot of humility, because we should approach all the challenges from that humility point of view. It's going to take a while for you to understand how things work, so you can eventually find yourself comfortable in the society. Trusting what you know you can do, and whatever that might take, right? Even if it's taking 2 years or 5 years down the road, knowing and never doubting that you are a valuable person and you know exactly what your worth on the market is. The fact that you experienced and faced and overcame lots of challenges, that alone places you on a very high level of being wanted in any kind of company and in this society. Do not despair. No situation is permanent. So although you're facing a very difficult time right now, it's not going to last forever. It cannot last forever. Something good is going to be happening. And also that the hard work is always paid off. Good luck.
Thank you, Madeleine, for being so open with your experiences to help others. Your success is inspiring, and your positivity is infectious.